everybody, welcome to episode number 3 of Spike Drop. Man, I want to say Tactical Crouch every time, and it took me like 40 episodes to not say well met when we started Tactical Crouch. Well, actually, it was Overwatch League Daily. When I did Overwatch League Daily, it was not saying well met. So, only 37 episodes until they get that out of the system. I'm KickedTripod, joined by Yiska and Volamel, of course. Ton to talk about this week, right? So much going on in the scene. Incredibly dynamic and fluid, but man, hard to kind of keep up with. I mean, I was looking today and at the Liquipedia for tournaments, and it feels like there's one every day, at least.
Yeah, I'm excited. I wouldn't say I'm kind of over the whole like creator showcase, like putting like a famous streamer in charge of a team and then kind of, letting them kind of pug about and compete for a prize, a cash purse. I think that's fine and definitely something to be expected early within a game. But I'm itching to see exactly what like set teams that have been built and kind of culture like driven, like they've been raised in this game, and then like what that looks like. What does this game look like when you actually have like a fleshed out esports space? I'm not trying to rush it, but like that's what I'm like waiting for, and we're starting to slowly get there with some of these like weekly cups. So it's just super exciting.
That's kind of how it happened though with Overwatch, is that you had these bigger streamers on teams with lesser known people who played really well, and they got their followings from a lot of their followings from playing really well on Tim the Tapman's team or whatever. So I'm excited. You got to let it run its course a little bit, right? Just like let it grow on its own. I know a lot of people. There's actually so many tournaments right now that players are having to choose which ones, and they have some bargaining power in the tournaments, which is pretty interesting. Outside of like huge majors and stuff, where it's like we're bringing in the biggest, best teams. But these are just a lot of these are just like smaller teams that have just done good in some of the other like weekly cups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wish, as Joe said, we would stop with these cutesy ideas and actually just someone slap like a lot of money on the table, and then we just have the try-hard teams slowly starting to crystallize and just see. And then teams can also like exchange players and make them better due to that. Currently, it feels like a lot of rosters are forced by the rule set or the concept of the tournament.
Yep.
And
that's fine for right now, right? Like that's going to happen. It's probably best that it does happen. It's probably best that it happens now.
Sure.
And kind of trickles off as the game continues. But it's just like that selfishness within me that's just like, oh, I really want to see I want to see what Brax looks like put into an actual team that like he's scrimmed with and he's practiced with, and they have their set plays, and the meta has actually evolved and developed and kind of stabilized, and we can actually start to see these people within an actual esport instead of just like in the seeding phase and like the budding era of Valorant. And I 100% agree. You don't need to rush it. I shouldn't want to rush it, but there's part of me that definitely does.
To be fair, the CS roster, so like from the ESPN tournament,
sure, yeah.
These guys have been playing most of these tournaments together. It seems like they have fairly stabilized. Of course, nothing now having replaced Shroud and whatnot. Like that was also the reason why I found it a little weird that we'll get to the ESPN tournament, but the way the teams were built left some questions to me.
It's fair. I think I hope we're seeing kind of cores of teams start to develop, especially with like the CS roster and especially with like AZK and this kind of these cores of these rosters that have played within the ESPN tournament. I hope they do stick together because they do look like they have some sort of promise. Granted, we haven't really seen much else in the way of kind of major competition, but I would like to see them continue, and that kind of be the impetus to how they kind of came together. Is they've been together since the beginning. It'd be a story that you can follow for a few years now. It would be nice to see. Hopefully that continues.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the news and stuff going on. We did get a new patch this week, but before we do, since we're so brand new, it's good for everybody to know where you can find us. We stream the show live on Twitch on Fridays at noon at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/spikedrop, and you can find our YouTube at bit.ly/spikedropyt. That's where you can find us. And the show is on all podcast outlets now, so you can listen to it anywhere on audio. Please do subscribe. Even if you don't listen on audio and you have a podcast player, though, go subscribe to it anyway. It helps us a ton, especially early on. And leave a 5-star review there while you're there. We really appreciate it. All right, patch notes. Let's go. So first things first, one pretty big change. They did change how melee works a little bit, where you now inflict double damage per hit on destructibles. So this is a big part to, like, during, we've all been on the pistol rounds against Sage that just totally just like, all right, we can't shoot through that wall without taking half of our ammo. So the first part is to make that a little bit more viable of an option to destroy those things. I mean, good, right? I actually haven't.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it doesn't help much.
I haven't punched a lot of ice walls. I'll be honest. I think I'm that bird-brained to begin with. I just go around.
I think it's also not
I'm
a good
like a
idea
lemming that has a
time.
detour. Like, it's like, oh, there's a wall, and you just turn around and go the other way.
I think there are certain circumstances where you're kind of forced to, especially with how slow people tend to play, especially with how new the game is at the moment. People play very, very slow. They're kind of hesitant to kind of make a choice. So having that in your way is the only way forward. So you kind of have to do that. Or, for instance, let's say you've accidentally just wall me into a corner as a teammate. Well, I don't want to waste ammo in shooting it, so I can now melee it a little bit faster. Like, it's a reach, but I think it definitely
accidentally
helps.
Wall Joe in a corner.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think it helps a little bit. It's not like some sort of, like Sage is so nerfed because you can melee or wall now. I think it's just kind of a quality of life thing.
I don't think it's exactly. It's not like oh man, Sage is broken. It's just like, it shouldn't, there's rounds where this is just unnecessarily difficult and isn't furthering the design of the game at all, I think.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I really struggle to look at applications where it makes at all sense, and this isn't just like a dummy trap, where it's like, when would it ever be safe to melee, to knife a wall? Most of the time, or very often,
rarely,
a Sage will actually man the wall on a side you don't know. So you would have to first clear it, then you stand in front of the wall, and you cannot melee it in a way where you're immediately not visible, I would think, to the Sage if she was to peek you in that very position. So
100%.
The chances of you then receiving a shot every time you go for a melee, if she's prepared for that to happen, it's not like you're meleeing it down in like 3 strikes. It takes a while.
100%.
So, and also this game might as well have infinite ammo. I've seen 0 people run out of ammunition in this game.
You underestimate how inaccurate I am and how much I use my gun to communicate to my team. They keep getting mad at me. I don't know why, but they just they're just like, he'll just be like walking. He's just walking really, really quietly, and I'm just like, hey, over here. I'm gonna pick up this orb, okay? That's what I
think with the advent of more destructible like walls and doors and stuff, that will definitely happen. And I think that this specific change to the game kind of not implicates them, but definitely like makes me a little bit more interested to things I've said in past shows. But I think chat again touches on something I wanted to kind of mention with the ice wall, is that, you can use your knife to weaken the wall a lot quicker now, and then back up, take space, and then break the wall with your, assault rifle, with your shotgun, with your pistol. So that doesn't happen where Sage just doesn't, barrel stuff you by being in your face or have an angle on the segment of the wall that you're breaking. I think that it saves ammo. It's definitely ammo conservative.
It's an option.
It's an option, right? It gives you a little bit more option. It is interesting going forward. Like I mentioned, like I do think the 4th map will probably have something to do a little bit more heavily with destructible objects. very similarly to Sage's Ice Wall and the doors on Haven. But I don't know how that's going to impact things, but we'll see.
My argument goes around to this doesn't solve the HP issue that the wall might have.
Oh, no. I don't think it was supposed to, though.
I think.
Do you think the wall has an HP issue?
Yeah, it has way too much HP.
I think it has problems. I don't know if it's HP related, though. Is it time related? Is it cost related? I think there are different ways to fix it.
It is only an obstacle when you're clearing or when you're trying to go through that choke that it's blocking by yourself. But in those cases, you are emptying a mag into that thing. Knifing most likely won't do you much good because depending on where that is, like there are literally angles where you cannot make sure that the Sage isn't on the wall. And they, like I'm thinking C, long C, for instance, on, I mean, there's only one point C the game. But like if you're on top of, if you boost yourself up on top of boxes, then like there are angles where when you stand in front of the wall, you're already dead, or you cannot see the Sage in that specific angle she has taken. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like yes, in those situations where you are going alone into something, you're giving away so much information no matter what kind of gun you use to break it.
Totally.
And also, I mean, if there is not an HP issue, there's most definitely a length issue.
Totally. Duration, health, cost, I think are all different ways that they could fiddle with it. And I think at some point they probably will have to.
Because you commit to giving away information if you want to go through the choke where the wall is. Like trading 35 seconds tops is not a valuable, is very often not an option. You got to give away the information.
I think it's overstated how valuable that information becomes. The less new the game becomes.
Why?
It's one thing to know, hey, they're at this wall, sure, but unless you're shooting it with like an operator or something, like most people are just taking out their pistols anyway. So it's not.
But you know they're there.
Well, and that's what I said. That's the only value, and you're not going to take that away ever without making the wall useless.
I mean, you could decrease the duration to 15 seconds or something. Then you have the chance to wait it out.
And decreases the cost pretty significantly. At that point, it just becomes a wait here 15
I'm not
minutes.
Sure if it's
like how fun is it to just put up a stanchion and say wait here or move? That's not like fun game design, I don't think. Like I like the longer duration. I like that you have to commit. The maps are small enough to where you can reroute at any time. I don't think it's a consideration, but I don't consider that a really powerful piece of information anyways. I mean, it's a powerful piece of what's the right way to say this? It's a powerful piece of information in the sense, yes, you know the person's there. I like having these interactions where you force the other team to make a choice. Do you tell them that they are there in order to get to the point you strategize to getting to, or you think that you can still rush that, or do you just go a different way, and then come back in 35 seconds? I think that's my problem with it.
I think that's my problem with it is that most of the time, I won't say all the time, but most of the time you're using this like on plant or post plant scenarios where you're physically denying somebody the opportunity to advance past that choke point. You wall it, you physically say you cannot go here unless you literally ring the dinner bell by shooting your gun trying to break the wall, right? Whereas with Slow Orb, you're given a choice to say you should probably not go this way. You're not physically removed from doing so, but you're dissuaded. I think that's, to me, that feels a little healthier, whereas the wall in general should be probably designed to be like a time buyer rather than I'm physically going to block this off, because I think that information, when scaled, is probably the most important thing in the game. If you know that somebody's coming this way, you can probably 70% of the time win that duel because they have no idea where you're at and you know exactly where they're coming from.
If you're planning at coming into the point with any sort of speed, though, you're gonna have to be walking through the orb anyway, and people can hear you, so you're not giving up that information.
Not anymore, they can't though. That's the thing.
Well, you're not. You can't walk through fast enough. Like you hear. Even so how it works now, right? So it used to work that if you were on the ice, period, you
Right.
made noise. It doesn't do that anymore. If you
Yes.
are walking, you don't make noise.
Right.
Which I'm saying is I think that's walking through the ice is too slow, that if it's used to defend a point, you're not walking in the first place.
I mean, I agree, but it still leaves that option open. It dissuades
So is
you.
shooting the wall.
That's a little bit more committal.
Yeah,
That's
the thing
a lot
is you're
more committal.
then giving away information. Like,
lot of
think about what like how easy it is to mid control, basically on every map using Sage Wall. It's like if you watch Brax or AZK, it's like, okay, we're swinging left because already the assumption is we're putting up a wall right, and no matter what the enemy does, if there's literally 5 people right side, they will not be able to penetrate the wall in a time window where you as a Sage have no recourse against it. You will get the information and be prepared. Or like if an Omen tries to teleport on top, or a Jet, that is already like the tells you get are so high that they will never get the jump on you. That is not the case for smokes, for instance. Smoke you can just walk through, and because of
you're
the
heavily
Pika's
dissuaded
advantage.
from not doing that, but it still is an option that
So-
the defending team has to cover.
And smokes are 100, to be fair. This is a 300 ability,
And
right?
Yeah.
So like it's, I mean, and you get one the entire round.
Totally.
There's lots of ways to go around still. I think, I don't know, Yiska, you took something that nobody goes through and shoots a wall and people just go around it. That's often the case. I can tell you for sure that was not the only way the wall was dealt with on the ESPN tournament, especially by the dev team.
No, I'm not saying walk around. I'm saying like, yes, they break it, but
oh, sorry,
Or
maybe
they
I
avoid.
misunderstood what you said. But
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are the choices, right?
yes, but whatever choice you make, that Sage is not disadvantaged by it whatsoever. It's always a safe option to do it. There's never a bad situation where, like, you put up that wall, and the only recourse for the enemy takes A, too much time, and B, is too big of a tell that the Sage will always have the offensive advantage to get a spin on you. Like, even in big numbers advantages, if I solo peek mid as Sage, they still have to break my wall. I can still pre-aim that angle and trade every single time reliably if I'm given like.
You can't pre-aim smokes?
No, you can, but you don't know the exit points of the smoke. Pika's advantage still exists.
I mean, if you put your smokes right, you limit the angle significantly.
Only theoretically, you can be sprayed through, like you
like
if,
a short on Haven and sitting between the back boxes, like kind of near hell.
Which we have, I'm so bad with names.
I know. I'm surprised that I remembered.
Sign
So like
out. Haven.
so a short on
Yeah.
Haven, below, not exactly, kind of below Heaven, between the boxes.
Yeah.
There's only kind of one way to come out, and unless you're really, really, really good, you can't aim through that angle through a smoke. So
I mean,
so on
that's
defense
just one
you
instance,
can.
though.
But I'm saying that there are instances like this, and there should be instances
Sure.
like this for any ability.
I think you can though, right? You can, like, if you tell me you put, for instance, what's that teleporter map again? On Bind. If you put in Pixel a smoke, I can accurately always peek you and shoot through smoke Pixel every time. It's like one weekend.
You can move that angle though. You can see the boxes. There's a significant margin of error for those angles. you're going to be there on defense anyways. So I don't know, man.
Okay.
I think
I understand what you mean now. Yeah. Okay.
we should probably just move on from this a little bit and say that I am not in disagreement with you that there could very well be a time where we see a change to the wall, and I would be very happy for it. I actually saw this week, I feel like I saw the wall used a lot more, especially on defense, to just raise teammates up to advantageous positions, and a lot less about
It's another part of the utility of the ability.
and a lot less to like, oh, we're just gonna block off C long, haha, bye. I saw that a lot less than, hey, we're gonna use this on B on Haven behind us, so we have two of us overlooking B mid. And right, that one's B mid or B main? B main. B main, I think. I don't know. Sorry. I'm learning. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of where I'm at with it, where I would hate to overreact because of, not even overreact, but we're in beta. Like this is one of those things where it's like, Mercy's resurrection in Overwatch probably shouldn't have made it out of beta the way it was. This is something that we're still early yet. Let's watch it, but let's keep talking about these patch notes, because this is actually the big one that we thought we were going to spend most of the time on, and that would be Raze. So Raze did see some balance changes here. Her paint shells were reduced from 2 to 1, but the paint shells refresh after 2 kills. So you throw a paint shell, get 1 kill, and then you make another kill with a gun. You now have an extra paint shell. I believe the kill counts from the time you throw it.
That I'm not sure. I don't know if it counts on itself.
98% sure.
Yeah, I would assume so, yeah.
So, but even then, you make 2 kills with the gun after you threw a paint shell and didn't get a kill, you get it back.
Feels like a good change to me. I mean, I think her kit was very overloaded on area denial and like very strong area denial, with also other utility. Obviously, like paint shells has a very long and wide radius. You got 2 of them, which would basically one-shot you if you were trapped in a corner, or just would chip you out if you were low, which was kind of obnoxious. And then the boom bot not only gives you information, but also does damage. And then C4 also does damage and gives her some sort of mobility and denial tool. Yeah, seems very strong. Obviously, all of that goes into building her ultimate as well. So toning that back a little bit was probably needed. What I will say, to kind of tie the two topics together, I wonder if we could see a world where Raze is picked because Sage's wall is too obnoxious, and you start to see like resources put into the wall to like remove it. Say like, okay, you're going to invest this, I'll invest this. We shake hands. Okay, cool. We got both abilities out. That could be kind of interesting. But
I mean, this ability cooldown trading is already heavily going on with
totally,
smokes
of course,
currently, right? Like,
which I love, and I think that's why the Overwatch players actually did better than we thought that they would this week, because there was so much ability management there going on. I don't have any info on that. I was just like, something I was like, wow, like they're really efficient with how they were using their abilities, and I thought that was really cool to see, based compared to the other teams.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, just to put it in perspective. So according to CypherCam.org, friend of the show, Baroy, genius, like nut stats already. Of course, keep in mind, these are the old Raze stats. So given that it's a nerf, it's less, like this number will even go down based on that. But Raze only had double kills in 14% of the rounds. And only in 1% of the rounds would you have a quadra, in which case you would have one more paint shell than before. So only in 14% of the cases with the old Raze are we getting the same amount of paint shells. So yes, like in theory, at the like most ridiculous scenarios, yes, you have one more paint shell. Basically never happens, or like very, very seldomly happens. And that is definitely a significant buff.
Worth noting, though, is that even though the double kills was only 14%, it is still the highest of any of the other agents. Not by much. You've got Jet at 13.7, and Phoenix at 13.45, which and Viper at 13.49 or 48. Sorry. So which is really interesting because those are the aggressive heroes. Those are the fragging heroes, the people that people just want to go on and do a lot. Interesting enough, Cypher and it looks like Cypher and
Sova and Breach, right?
Sova and Breach are the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Breach, I think, surprised me a little bit. With a lot of his utility through walls.
I think
I would expect that to be a little bit higher.
I think because he doesn't kill, but he sets up.
Yes.
That's the reason. Like, you are not first in on your own abilities most of the time. You set up the entry, and then the second guy comes in. Then again, maybe the entry guy, and I think he has this as well. Let me see. General stats, FK. No, Breach is actually in the upper echelon of first kills. Interesting. So maybe he just trades a lot in that scenario because it's so telegraphed or whatever, but also fairly high first death rate. Interestingly, of course, this is all in the FK lost. FK1 is also interesting. Like, in 70% of the cases, does a first death of him lead to a loss, and that other than Viper is the highest. And then FK1, if he gets the first kill, it's like, okay, it's decent, right? But to basically paraphrase, or like to summarize, I think we haven't scratched the surface of what Breach is capable of in a team setting. I think a lot of professional teams said like he feels almost OP in some instances. If you need to win a round on attack, you got it with Breach if you have ult. And that of course can flip economies pretty quickly, but it's not represented in the dataset that Baroy took. And of course, like what he said is he didn't necessarily take tournament streams, but like high level streams and all kinds of data to get a fair shake of what's actually going on. So it makes perfect sense. I think Breach is the archetypical character that will probably also not work in rank that well until we've developed like a
Breaches.
solid synergy and understanding and like calling structure of people to just go like how likely is it, for instance, in CS, in your typical ranked game, to say I'm flashing you in?
Yeah,
how often have you heard
never.
that?
Almost never.
So
most of the time it's I didn't know you were flashing. I'm now blinded. We both die.
Yes.
Breach is also, so on like the front page of Cypher Cam, Breach is currently slow and clunky. So there you go. That's all you need to know. Breach bad.
Feels bad to play, but I think I'll give it 4 months that we'll be screaming, or the pros, not we. The pros will be screaming for him to be changed, because he's the next agent to be raised, both metaphorically and like literally.
We'll see.
I think Raze, if we were complaining that Raze was not the kit to be added to this game, I think Breach is also within that boat.
Maybe, yeah.
It's really interesting just having somebody whose abilities are so are so not confined by walls.
Yes, 100%.
Like that's the thing. Like that is something that feels very potential to be exploited at some point. I just don't think that we found the way to do that yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I've definitely seen some people who play Breach, especially on like Haven B is a great example of one where, Breach can kill multiple people on Haven B without seeing a single one of them. All you have to do is know that they're there. Just because it's his abilities through walls and all that stuff is so strong. But you're right. It's it's the Ana of this game, where it might take 6 months for people to figure it out.
I would say, like, maybe barring Sova, Breach is the hero, the agent that is most anti CS. Because if you ask pro players what kind of their conception of CS is, they would probably give you an answer like it's basically geometry.
Yeah.
It's basically all about angles, which are set by obstacles and walls and all that type of stuff. And then Breach comes around and says, for a very large part of my kit, I don't care about that at all.
Yep.
Which
is why
yes, I care
in most
about
cases it can't one-shot you.
Yeah. Like I care about how the maps are structured and like, am I firing through one or two walls in that specific instance? But generally, he just says that angle that you're currently sitting in that should be safe for you from this angle is absolutely not. And in a sense, Sova is kind of like that because of his ultimate to a degree. I would argue his Stormcall arrow, like the electric arrow or whatever it's called, is more like an HE, like a high explosive grenade. But of course, like anti-CS in that regard is also like the recon arrow, of course. Like that was the ability that everyone before the game was out got tilted at because But because I mean, now we know, yes, it's very strong, but it doesn't feel necessarily unfair, and it's a lot of information. It's an information race where it's like, okay, this Sova has this arrow, so I can stand here when he shoots this, and I will not be seen, and then I can reactively shoot it to have some counterplay. While the Sova can say, okay, I have this new, arrow that you might have not seen, and now you're standing there, and my first pulse hits you, right? It's kind of like in a knowledge arms race. That's enjoyable. I don't think it's necessarily toxic.
That's 100%
broken.
the case.
It's really interesting though how, obviously there's still, I think, some balance issues or whatever, but the fact that we're 5 weeks into this game and the fact that everything like largely has some level of counterplay and some level of new things being discovered means that they really did a pretty good job at like finding a balance for these abilities of how do you have some sort of like puritanical shooter that also just isn't an Overwatch skin of CS. And I think they're doing that. I want to talk. So Raze also had two other things that we're just going to run through. We're not actually going to discuss. They tuned her ability audio so it's easier to hear in hectic scenarios. Thank you. And fixed a bug with pain shells exploding too quickly by adding a minimum duration after or before exploding. So all makes sense. Sage also saw a couple pretty big changes. The first one is her slow orb now slows airspeed of players in the zone. So that basically it severely nerfed bunny hopping through the zone. It also, so this is probably, I should probably say this together. So slow orb now slows airspeed of players in the zone, and players can now walk through the slow orb without making noise. So that was the key thing, is that even if you were walking through the slow orb, you were still being there. So you had no choice. If you got stuck in a slow orb, like a Raze throws it around the corner and doesn't peek, you move and give away your position, or you have to stand there for the duration of the slow orb, which is what, like 15 seconds, 20 seconds?
It's a little less, I think, but very long still.
Very wide duration. Like that was one of those things that if I was to guess changes, slow orb had to see changes. You get two of them, it covers like an absurd area, and it gives you like audio cues. That was the thing that really sold me. Like looking at her kit on its face without like the details, I was very down on Sage. But when Yiska told me that she had audio cues when you were walking through slow orb, that completely flipped the script for me. I was like, oh, okay, that's an information tool. Information's the name of the game. Slow orb's insane. What I definitely am not, I kind of wish they changed this differently, they went about this differently. I think adding in like a progressive development to counterplay is kind of interesting, to say I could be able to counter slow orb if I knew how to bunny hop. Because I don't, or I don't have the momentum, or I haven't practiced it enough, it counters me. I think that it was a kind of an interesting dynamic to say, oh, I have to practice bunny hopping because Sage is really popular, and if not, then I don't. I think that that's kind of interesting to kind of look at the mechanics of the game and say, just moving different can be your counterplay, while that movement is, you know, obviously something that you have to practice, much like you have to aim. But I don't know. I think this is fine. I kind of wish they would have kept bunny hopping in. I mean, it still is, but it's not counterplay to this specific ability.
So one thing I will say is the first thing that I asked is, how does this affect Jet? Like, can she jump up and move over, or what? And so I haven't tested it, but it seems as though this does affect Jet for sure on the ground. I don't know above, but I confirmed it from a couple different sources, just not first party sources. So, yeah,
I'd imagine so.
I think now the way I think a lot of people use slow orb was either counter push, and I think that's still accomplished by the slow. So basically what happens is you gather information in an angle, you see 3 people, they're obviously aggressive, you retreat while throwing the slow orb. That will still remain intact and arguably is now buffed by them not being able to bunny hop through it, even though you would say, how often does that really happen? Because very often that will result in the bunny hopping people to expose themselves, where at least a trade is very likely. So actively, I've never seen that actually.
I think
for multiple people to jump them.
I can't say that I've been a stream monster for Valorant in particular, especially without like the esports scene and the tournament scene like really ramping up. But from the little bit that I have seen, I have definitely seen people like bunny hop through slow orbs and come out the favorable end of a trade. It is rare, but definitely I can recall that it happened.
I think a lot of times when you throw that slow orb, though, you don't expect the enemy to push. And I think that that's something that you see with a lot of the defensive abilities, is that you place them in favor with the assumption that that means that they're going to back off. And so you don't necessarily take your best, smartest angles because you're not really waiting. So bunny hop puts them at an advantage, I think, only in the fact that they probably aren't holding the best angles from what I've seen.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a thing currently. I think once people would have started, B hopping, then you just hold the angle while retreating, just walking backwards, especially as much knowledge
where you're throwing from and where you're holding that angle. Yeah,
exactly. I think what's now happening is, I think a lot of people use it to clock down the time. So let's say you're defending hookah. You start with the wall and you place yourself up or right. Like, if there's no Raze, there's almost no counterplay to that, honestly. To the Sage not being able to trade you, at least.
You just have to basically forfeit and just go A at that point.
So then you're down 35 seconds, or you bang it through and take a high risk trade scenario there. After the 35 seconds have passed, the Sage now throws a slow orb and doesn't have to peek you in order to gain information for the next, I think it's 10 or 12 seconds that the slow orb is up. That goes twice. Yep. So now, let's say it's 10 seconds. 10 seconds plus 10 seconds plus 35 seconds. We had 55 seconds. That's is already
most of the round.
Eliminating so much of your tactical choices, where it's like, okay, you probably aren't going through that very choke. That you're probably not coming through hookah then. And now what it has done is, I think the Sage needs to commit a little bit, maybe jiggle peek, even though not sure how feasible that is in Valorant, because a lot of walls, like a lot of angles or like corners, seem bangable. So shoulder peeking gets more.
It's definitely punished way more than it is in CS. It feels like.
Yeah, and tagging is nuts in this game. Like,
I mean, it is in most like CS or tactical shooter games. Like, it is in R6 and it is definitely in CS.
Yeah,
like you get tagged, like you're dead.
I'm not sure what it is. It feels even more significant than in CS.
Same.
Maybe that's the movement speed reality. Maybe that's just my perception.
Maybe, yeah.
And yeah, I think that is now gone, and she has to make more, at least take a little bit more risk, and just like not get a free, like just like plaster the wall, or like just eliminate basically an entrance to a site at will every round for what, $500? Yeah, like that's it's a lot better, I think. Of course, it eliminates a high skill or medium to high skill counterplay with a B-hop, which is always sad to see, but yeah, I'm not sure if
I think it probably is like a healthy change, maybe just for like the general public. But yeah, I kind of wish that something like that existed. It was like another way to practice the game, where it was like I have to practice movement now. It's a topic for another day, but an interesting one to dive into.
You can tell right now that we're really fascinated by game balance, because we just spent 40 minutes essentially on the balance of three abilities, basically.
Yeah.
So and it was almost all just Sage, Orb, and Wall, honestly. So hey, Sage, what up? All right, let's talk about this. So we did get a Valorant ranked update this morning, and here's the highlights for you. First, Valorant ranked is coming. You will be ranked Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Immortal, and Valorant. I keep on saying Valiant. Valorant. There's 3 tiers per rank. You lose and win more ranking based on your personal performance, but winning and losing is the main factor, of course, as in pretty much any ranking system ever. You must complete 20 unrated matches to unlock competitive mode. There are, we said this, 8 ranks total, 3 tiers in each, except Valorant is just, it's like top 500 or whatever else, it's just, that's what it is. You can queue up with up to 5 player parties, but they must be within 2 ranks, so within 6 tiers up or down. And your rank isn't displayed, and that is also, the matchmaking tries to match you with similar party sizes. So if you play as a 5 stack, the chances of you being put up against another 5 stack or 4 or 3 stack is very high. Your rank isn't displayed if your competitive matches aren't played within or if you don't play a competitive match within 14 days, but your rank doesn't decay behind the scenes. I don't understand that, but and also closed beta rank does not close or carry over to launch. We don't know the exact ETA for rank coming out in beta, but the current ETA is sometime next week. That's all the good stuff. All right. Yes. Yiska, pick this apart for me. All good? All good news here?
Yeah, I think there's nothing totally egregious in there. Like 5-player party worked pretty well in CS from my estimation. I think there's a way where, especially like the fact that they look at parties that are about similar skill level, but also the same size of the pre-mate is super helpful. Do you know what I mean? So if you queue with 4 at Diamond, then the system first and foremost tries to find 4-man pre-mate in Diamond.
Yep.
Right. So that ensures, because for instance in League of Legends, flex queues, and also to a degree in Overwatch, of course, we're an absolute mess and not fun to play against in or around. Like, if you're the guy that, like, I still fear for this a little bit, where it's like, if you're the one guy in a 4-man team, I would think statistically you're being submitted to more toxicity than in other situations when you solo queuing, where you will make the
sure,
the bottom of the joke.
I could definitely see that, where the 4 stack is forcing the random to kind of like
do what they want,
do what they ask.
They have
blame them.
Yeah. Could see that. Could definitely see that.
Even in 3-man, like one.
There's not really a way to resolve that, though, right? Like, it's not like, oh well, you're just gonna play a 4v4 match or anything. Yeah. So
no, the thing is, like, you could just say 2 and limit it to that.
Yeah, you have 1 ladder for solo duo and then 1 ladder.
Yeah, it's just a group dynamic that like I think everyone who's played in online games just knows that there's a propensity to making the other group that is not the one in your voice the problem.
Yeah,
just to
definitely.
psychologically go. Like, you can have three very smart, intelligent individuals apart from each other, and as soon as they come together, they're dumb as bricks, right?
Yo, I mean, yeah, it's
Like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. In my more toxic World of Warcraft days, I remember going for you'd be a 5-man and there'd be 4 of us and we bring in the 1 and then blame everything on them.
It's the tank's fault. You know, the DPS can't CC.
Vote it, and you could vote to kick them too.
Yeah, and you just always had majority, so it was just like, all right, you're out. Buddy out.
Vote to kick
also
down
were
the
wrong.
last boss, get the extra piece of loot chance on you. Yeah, it's
Wow.
I mean, no, never do that.
Yeah,
never, ever. I never did that.
I do hope that that's the case though, where they separate the ladders out, because you definitely don't want to limit people and saying you can't play ladder with your friends, you can't play ranked with your friends.
It's fun. It's a fun game to play with your
100%.
friends, and you want to encourage that, right?
Yep.
You want to encourage
It's just
people to play as friends.
doing it in
but
healthy
there's
ways.
there's just so much about. Honestly, I can say too, my win rate is way lower when I play with friends. Than it is when I'm not, even though we're within the approved the approved ranks that we can queue with. Like, we lose a lot, and maybe that's just my experience, and it hasn't been that case for you guys. But I really don't want it to turn into that feeling again either, where maybe just the matchmaking isn't quite right when it's trying to matchmake based on skill and group size.
Yeah.
But I get why they have to try. I don't know. What's your thoughts on your rank isn't displayed if competitive matches aren't played within 14 days?
I don't even know what that even.
I don't understand
Why?
this at all.
Seems
Why,
very
So
bizarre.
the justification for it, I'm gonna pull it verbatim from the article. After 14, so rank inactivity will also be tracked. If you haven't played a competitive match in 14 days, then your account will be considered inactive and your rank will be hidden. Don't worry, your rank will be displayed again after your first match back. We want to be confident that when others see your rank, it's an accurate reflection of your skill. After 14 inactive days, we don't have as high of confidence in displaying your rank. However, we won't decay your rank artificially in the background, so don't sweat it if you're one of those players that is always on top of their game.
That feels very weird.
It feels
it seems like an incentivization tool to play ranked, but I don't think that's even like enough to.
If my rank is
or
still
make people
there,
care.
if my rank is still there, it means that I have to be within 6 tiers of the people I'm getting matched with anyway, right? It's not like I'm a diamond player playing with gold or bronze people.
Right.
But that's not the case. It's like imagine in Overwatch, you queue up, you're a platinum player, you queue up and you're with 4 other platinums, but your rank is hidden. Like, oh,
I mean, you could logically kind of conclude that they have to be around, like
you have
high
to be
diamond,
around
like,
you, but like
yeah.
you're good enough to be.
But you can't tell.
Yeah, they're good. It's like, hey, you're good
Seems
enough
very
to
weird.
be there, but you might be 6 off or whatever, which doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, either
Bizarre.
it makes no sense to me at this point.
No.
I could maybe see if it was like 60 days and there was some level of MMR decay that you assume if you don't play for that long, or you have to play like 3 games to make sure that you still got it, and they do like really volatile MMR stuff or SR stuff to like quickly correct you to where you are. I would get that. I don't think that anything I just said is the right solution for that, but I would get them trying to.
Right, but that you
create a
can
system
identify
around
like
that.
a clear like problem that system's trying to solve. I don't know what this does. I don't know why this is here. That's like my big question is like, why? This seems like a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, what, like, even conceive of a world where like this solves a problem?
It's, I mean, like
I can't.
the hypothetical scenario that I can think of is somebody comes back from not playing for 14 days. We're all in platinum together, let's say, and they play like they're silver.
I think they just expect an explosion in skill across those ranks within 14 days, where if you don't play for 14 days, then, I mean, then again, there is no decay.
Am I not following? Yeah, your MMR doesn't change.
It doesn't
You're
change.
still queuing into plat. You might be playing like you're silver, but you're playing in plat anyways.
Unless they turn that one match, they think they can turn that one match into a placement match, which they can't. It's too small of a sample size.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
I would much rather be like, you have to go through 4 placement matches if you don't play within 14 days.
If you're 14 days, you have to replace. Makes sense.
I don't understand. It's not like people need an incentive to play, right? Ranked.
I mean, now I do think that there is a lot of people who do need incentives, especially if you incentivize rank. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, for example, in League of Legends, it's very common for people to get to gold, to be able to place within the reward structure, because if you place gold, you get a skin, you get like some cosmetics, and you achieve something, and then you stop. Similarly, I think in Overwatch, after a certain point, you get some sort of perk, and then you decay down. It's to keep those they're kind of in check, to make sure that they actually have earned it and can consistently earn it, to make sure that they're at that level. I think that that's fine. I think that that's healthy to try and incentivize people. No, you have to keep your spot in top 500. No, you have to keep your spot in Grandmaster and in Challenger League. The only way that you're going to get there is by, being incentivized to play, because if you don't, you're going to decay. Does that apply to silvers and golds? Probably not, but I think there is reason to believe that like incentivization to want to play ranked, to keep your rank, is important.
Skulda Kid did actually put a good point in chat that I didn't think about. If you're boosted, so imagine you get boost up to immortal, right?
Okay,
but you're not an immortal player, you're a gold player. After 14 days, immortal doesn't show up anymore.
I mean, I think there will naturally be a decay system in immortal, by just limiting the amount of people who can be in it or whatever, like it is in Challenger or whatever. But I think that argument is also easily kind of like, how long would it take for someone to be shifted out of their rank or rank region if they just play one game every 14 days? I don't think you're shifting.
And we don't know that. I think that they might be shifting pretty hard if you haven't played in 14 days and you're that high and you play like a gold player in Immortal.
But they said that, they explained something about rating of individual performance, and they've specifically said there's no decay. If there was decay, like, I feel they wouldn't say this if there was a multiplier towards like
personal.
Yes, there's no decay, but when you lose, there's a bigger minus when you haven't played in 14 days. I don't think that's necessarily.
There's not a bigger minus, but there is. A, I wouldn't be surprised if there was. But B, if you're a gold player playing against immortal players, you're gonna play like.
Sure,
of course
you are,
but
and the game. And we don't know how much. We know that the majority of your points come from winning or losing, or actually we don't even know that. We know that that's
no. They said that, right?
It's the this winning games is the most important factor in gaining rank. Losing games and performance will well below expectations deduced from your previous matches will reduce your rank. So it actually takes this immortal player plays on your account for 2 weeks to boost you. It plays really well, and then you play one match where you basically never have played worse in your entire life, and it's not even the same person. That hits you hard. Now, again, we don't know how hard it hits you, how fast that natural decay, I guess we can call it, of one match every 14 days. But if you're not out of immortal after 3 or 4 matches of being a gold player in immortal, I think that the system needs to be relooked at.
I mean,
I think what's realistically going to happen, or why this is implemented now, is frog in hot water situation, where if you implement this early, and while nobody really has an issue and doesn't see any applications to it, then they will eventually be accustomed to it when it becomes a problem. AI, like camping top Valorant ratings. At the end of like big league seasons, or
I wonder if
for
it
the more
removes
casual
them from
players.
Leaderboards.
Also for more casual
question.
players having to play more ranked when the desire to play ranked is not as much as in a brand new game is, and they're just getting these systems in now, so they just like silently introduce systems that in the long run will have positive effects towards the player base without the
if that makes sense, then
barrier of introducing it to an audience that I'm not sure. Maybe, like, of course, this is some reaching, but then again, like, I think they learned a lot from League of Legends, and they are trying to apply their lessons in the least resistance inflicting or causing manner.
Right. I don't, and to be fair, I don't think that this system hurts anything.
Yeah.
I can't think of any reason that it's a system that is bad or has negative effects in any way. I'm definitely if you've got them, it's just like I don't totally understand. I don't totally understand what this was solving yet, but there are enough of these like little fringe cases where I'm like, okay, all right, maybe there is some foresight going on here.
I think the boosting argument makes the most sense, but I still don't agree with it because it's a free to play game, so I can just make a new account and get boosted again, or I can continue to be boosted.
After they play 20 unrated games,
you can play 20 unrated games, pay $15, get boosted, have the high for 14 days, do it all over again. I don't know. Like, did people do some?
It's probably very low. Dude, they're paying.
Apply a number, whatever it is.
The number
isn't
important as much as the
boosters will continue to boost. I don't think so. I think people who are interested in boosting will pay whatever the price is, because they're always going to go down, and it's just a vicious cycle of you boost to get to diamond or whatever. You can't play at diamond, so you go back down, you get boosted again. That's how they make their money. That doesn't solve that in here because you can just get boosted again. Just because your rank's hidden, it's going to go down, or you just make a new account and get boosted back up. I don't know. Seems weird, but maybe it fixes itself down the road, or maybe it solves a problem that I can't foresee. So whatever.
All right, let's go to esports a little bit.
Okay.
I forgot that we have the button. This button feels so good to play.
Yes.
ESPN Esports Invitational, obviously the big one that went on over the past few days. Team Canyon. Wait, did I put this wrong? I might have put this wrong. Let me make sure I didn't put it wrong. No, I was right. Team Canyon takes first place. Yeah. Team Mirage takes second. And then the Valorant Devs and Team Heroes took 3rd/4th. Team Canyon is made up of current Apex Pro players. Team Mirage is current CSGO Pro players, and Team Heroes they didn't say it explicitly, but it was a lot of Overwatch peeps. So it was the Overwatch team. So
I mean, if we're being honest, all of those are has-beens in all of their game other than Apex. Like none of the CS players were
Apex.
necessarily.
They're not has-beens because
there's
there's nothing else going on for Apex and like.
I mean,
Pro
sure.
League, you know.
And there's also an argument to be made that a lot of the Apex pros also came from other games, and their scene is actually not that old in terms of competitive. Like, Kellogg comes from Overwatch, Mendo comes from Overwatch, Ace is a former CSGO pro player. I think there was one more guy that was also a CSGO pro player. In Overwatch, of course, like, not a single tier 1 talent in there. In CS, these guys have been banned for the longer.
Frag, apparently. You've never seen a Frag movie.
So I should have said no tier 1 and tier 2 player or tier 3. Yeah, like here's the thing. if you wanted to make an argument with this event about which type of player base adapts the best, you've not done that. What you've done is pit tribes against each other and engage in comments in like toxic ways. Like,
I mean, come on. ESPN knew what they were doing. Like, that was the entire example to put on this show, that all the best players from all these games. Obviously, that's not the case, but that's what they want people to talk about.
If Overwatch fans spent as much time playing the game as they did defending Overwatch as an esport, we'd be in a way better spot.
Or watching it, yeah, definitely.
Or watching it, yeah, that's true. Yeah, just playing it, watching it, consuming it. Be better, Overwatch fans. But besides that, though, I mean, what'd you guys take away from this one? It's pretty cool. Honestly, all things considered, the Overwatch guys did surprisingly well, I thought. It
I'd
should,
say so.
I don't know if like Rainbow Six should have
done better theoretically.
I feel like Rainbow Six should have done better. I feel like
there again, we don't know like what kind of like people they really pulled from. Maybe they were pulling from
and I don't know all
people.
these scenes,
I don't know.
so I don't even know like how good the players are. Like if you're playing Rainbow Six competitively, obviously it's not like a quote unquote tier 1 esport. How many tier 1 athletes do you have when you aren't in a tier 1 esport? Like it's like all the MMO players who are playing Paladins. Are any of them better than the LoL Dota guys? Probably not. But yeah, I don't know. I was surprised that the Apex guys brought it back. That was impressive.
I went to bed on the first map when CS was 9-1 up, dude, and I was like, this tournament is stupid. The CS team wasn't even forced to switch like 2 or 3 players from the CS, but they actually went in with a team they're competing in every game. This is not competitive. La la la.
I mean, and then like talk like this was never supposed to be.
Slaps.
This is never supposed to be competitive.
You're wasting money.
No, it's about putting on a show right now to get people excited for the future. This is.
I mean, if you were to tell me that ESPN Esports doesn't always take esports seriously, yes, I would agree with that.
I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right here and not comment. That said, this was not supposed to be competitive first. This was supposed to be entertaining. Supposed to be, the World Cup, if you will, of esports, right? Where we get everybody to play this new game.
That should also not exist.
Right, but you see how this was framed and you see how you're framing it. 2 different things.
I mean, I understand the framing. I just don't think that's. I think that's a fun thing to do for like, I don't know, let's say Keemstar, who's already a big addictive and can run that tribalistic dumb stuff.
Okay.
But I think ESPN should have actually used their platform to do something very competitive and have.
I think they will. I don't think that that's not coming. I think that there's room for that to happen, but this is the entryway. I think again, the birth and the start of the game, right? This is where you want this to happen. You want the entertainment. You want people to get excited because their favorite streamer's playing the game. So hopefully that carries over to when their favorite streamer joins an actual team and tries in that team. And, those fans become fans of that team and become fans of the esport by proxy, right?
I think in all actual fact, their favorite streamers, like, they're probably not going to stick around for that long in this game. Their favorite streamers are the timid Hetmans that will sail the wind of whatever game is big, and that's the same for Shroud, and it's the same for Ninja. Actually had pretty respectable numbers on Mixer, I saw.
I couldn't tell you.
These types of guys are pulling the numbers, and it's I mean, I'm probably being a little bit of a killjoy here by taking issue with that. I just think like if you have that platform, like in Overwatch, we had very early, pretty serious tournaments. I'm thinking of the Melty Cup or whatever.
Sure,
Like,
but we
that was
still
week
have
one.
those. Melty Cup is basically a
don't.
lot of these other cups. We do. They're not put on by ESPN.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's your problem, is that you wish that they would be sponsoring like a cup or like a monthly melee type of deal. But who's to say that isn't also happening? This is just the genesis of it.
Yeah. I would have liked to see just like serious teams, especially competing against the devs, because that is actually my qualm with it all, is that I don't see the devs competing in many more games, and I wish we would have seen that against serious teams. And of course, like the Brax team probably is fairly serious, and I'm not sure if they will
serious as much as they can be, obviously.
Sure. But yeah, I think I would have liked to see just, I mean, they made it 3 and 4, but there's always the thing, like, to say maybe they didn't take that serious because it was like this and this, 100%. And also they don't necessarily have to win, and they're picking Viper, which is obviously like currently probably the worst agent in the game.
Yep.
And they're trying to make it work, and it's.
I mean, wasn't it that like there was one map, I can't remember exactly when I had caught some of the broadcasts. I remember I think it was Emily was talking about how like one map that wasn't being picked that was like constantly banned, and like the devs like didn't ban that, so they were forced to pick the weird map. And then it was maybe split.
Yeah, it is split,
right.
And they then played Viper into that.
Viper on split just to kind of like change it up a little bit. Yeah, and that's fine, but whatever. Again, like, it's not content that was like super tailored for me. I'm more interested in like the actual tournament structures, which we're starting to get, which is great. And the teams that have been built and are practicing and scrimming, and like that's their primary focus, not content creation necessarily. That's what I'm interested for. So it was fun. It was interesting. We got to see some early pick, patterns. Again, Sage Brimstone being very strong, seeing a lot more Omen, seeing a lot more Breach, seeing a lot more Cypher. That again will probably impact ladder and your unrated games, and maybe even the early rated games. But again, not a ton for me to take away from this. Surprising that the Apex players did as well as they did. I think everybody assumed, I won't speak for everybody. I think it's a safe assumption for people to assume that CSGO was just going to dominate everything. And maybe that's not the case, but there again, could be different if other pros come over and maybe they're better suited. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, what can I say? I like sweaty esports. That's just how it is.
We know.
I do like sweaty esports as well. I do have to ask you this question now, though. We've been watching, we've had Valorant esports now for a few weeks. All the kinks obviously aren't worked out, but you've got the general idea of how it's probably performing as a spectator esport. Are you guys enjoying watching Valorant?
So far, I think, how do I put this? The initial honeymoon is definitely keeping me around. I think there are definite observer issues that need to be fixed. I think the entire like observer infrastructure needs to be built out so it is a little bit easier viewing experience. I hope that VODs are on their way. I'm glad that ranked is on the timeline, but I'm interested in when actual like replays can be downloaded so I can actually look at them instead of trying to look at Twitch VODs, because that's painful. But in terms of right now, I think it's fine. I think I'm enjoying it as I can. But I worry that when the honeymoon phase dies off and we start to get into, month 7, month 8, we still don't have replays and we still don't have proper observing tools, and people have to get a little creative. It might get a little wearing, let's say, because I don't know how many times I can deal with trying to view a fight with a scoreboard in my face. We'll see.
Yeah, there is. And on the flip side, I don't know how many more times I can see a round reset without having a scoreboard in my face, so I can see what everybody's buying and what the economy is.
100%.
I think that has been kind of like the best things. I think spectators have finally figured out, or producers or whoever is like, hey, in between rounds, tab that scoreboard button, bro.
Yep.
I think the spectating is just going to get better over time. The spectating tools are really minimal. Are minimal, but they're, for a first person shooter, they're acceptable for beta.
Sure. I think I could agree.
I don't like, and I don't think that if you don't find it entertaining now to watch, I don't know that fancier cameras or different angles are going to change that for you. You just may not really like this brand of FPS esport. You just may not.
100%.
I hope that doesn't end up being me, because there are definitely times where I can sit and watch like a Hearthstone tournament for hours. I don't know why. I don't play Hearthstone anymore. I don't know what the cards do anymore. I can just play and watch them for hours. I can't do that with Overwatch, and I can't do it with Valorant as much. Although more Valorant than Overwatch at this point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
I have mild concerns for lack of visual clarity and it becoming too much of a spammy ability game where 1 minute of 130 is just going to be spent exchanging smokes in strategical ways that no doubt require strategical setups and are probably like master tactician type of chess moves. But I wonder if that is too slow for an esports audience. Yeah. Where there's not...
Is slow the right word, would you say? I mean, maybe describe slow a little bit more.
Inherently, I think Valorant is set up to be faster than CSGO because a lot of the preamble of like we all spawn into the very same site, and that is kind of eliminated in the buy time, right? But I think there's significantly more area control and space control that makes attacking or attackers like you need more time to get the information. Rotations are pretty quick. You have a lot of utility. Like I'm thinking Omen just like basically also just shuts down an entrance, at least in terms of visibility, for like eternity. I remember like watching Brax play it on B mid between B and C, you know, like
sure.
And just like standing at the door against, I think that was the devs, and just like smoking. And then Brimstone puts the smoke down, smoking.
Sure.
And then it almost becoming like a CS type, Navi type of round every time where the opposing team sees themselves forced to wait very, very long and then execute in the last 30 seconds. And I think the game might have a propensity towards those types of strategies where the pacing of it is slow, and also we might have too many ability cooldowns covering too much area.
It feels a little chessy, doesn't it, in a way, but almost less strategic.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like you're moving pawns, right? You're laying smokes around and you're blocking off different paths and, you know, peeking an angle, and you're just kind of waiting for something to happen. And it can sometimes take like 45 seconds, a minute for something to move forward. Otherwise, you're just like, you have one person at each site, and then you have two people kind of hopping around from one another. Come in, no, come see, no, B guys, we got it, we can do B. And then
I think the hope, I can't call it a prediction, but my hope is that is just a style, and I think I have enough to support that claim. I'm just definitely not comfortable with it yet because we haven't seen like actual esports of this to see if that is a style. But I think there is like a very slow vision denial kind of trying to milk the clock as much as possible while on attack and defense. And there is also a style where you're playing with a lot of flashes. You're trying to go quickly. You're trying to push the objective. You're playing Jet. Again, that's the only way I think Jet's going to work in this game is if you play quickly and you just go. You just grab your minerals and run. You just attack the site. You have your set play. You flash in. You stun them. Whatever. And you play quicker than the enemy team can just affordably try to slow you down. Hopefully that's a style. and not just an inherent problem with the game where it is just like too vision denial-y, too area denial-y, and it stops engagement from happening. I haven't felt that way yet, just personally, but we'll have to see.
I mean, compare it to CS, right? Like
Sure.
in CS, you cannot gather information if someone is shifting or like slow walking.
Yeah.
Unless you see them, correct?
Yeah.
That is not the case in Valorant. You can very safely get information. You can very safely get smokes.
Right. I agree.
Like everything that is defensively focused is very safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that inherently seems to force a playstyle where attacking, with the exception on bind, and maybe that's an map infrastructure, like map architecture thing, where maybe that's maps. That's very possible, but the other maps are definitely defense favored. And defense favored also means for the attacker that they require to get the perfect or the good setup to drain the resources, to not run into overly like harmful situations, while the Cypher just sits there through 6 corners and just goes like, saw them, like, and can pick whatever angle he wants to, and can already tell the rotation, like, or call the rotation way in advance, and like it just seems way easier to make the call there than in CS.
Funnily enough, though, you say that according to Cypher Cam, and this is 1,200 rounds recorded on average. There are Haven and Split are both defensive favored by a considerable percentage, like 4, 5, 9% on Split, which kind of makes sense, right? But Bind is actually offensive favored.
I'd say the most even, but yeah, slightly attacker favored.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. It definitely feels that way. And again, like the sample size is just going to get larger there. So 1,200 rounds is not a perfect sample size by any means. But
again, something we have to kind of shift our focus on with CS real fast before we kind of close out is that CS is a completely mirrored game where everything you can do, I can do, right? You can buy a smoke, I can also buy a smoke, but I can't pick Jet if I've picked Phoenix, for example, right?
Well, I can't buy an AK, but okay.
100%, but you also have a round on the opposite side where you can buy it, and the enemy team can't. So it's mirrored to an extent. It's not completely asymmetrical. Whereas in this game, there are more choices to make it asymmetrical. So it's not just that the map is favored one way or the other. It's also that characters are tied to that map. There's a tier list per map, let's say, and those characters are also favored for one side or the other. So it's a little bit more intricate than just saying bind is defensively favored or bind is attack favored. It's bind favors attacking or defending heroes that make it defending or attacking favored, stuff like that. So keep that in mind.
And that's just as a last point, and we cannot go into detail on this, but this is something I'm really looking forward to in terms of CypherCam, because currently it's already possible for the stats that Roy provided for us to say, are there counter matchups?
Sure.
Based on win rate, when one hero is there and one other is there on the other team, then you can say, okay, on average, Omen wins X amount of games against Jet.
Sure.
Yep. All right. What a fun show. I like doing this show. We're 3 episodes in. It's fun. It's not you just kind of let it go. Just got to let it go, run its course. We did not get to talk about the Bucky today.
We'll get to it. I'm
sad, but at the same
form
time,
more
that's the
opinions
beautiful
on it.
part about where we are right now in the game is that Bucky will probably still be relevant next week.
Yes.
So,
and I'll also have a chance to toy with that because I've literally never bought that gun. Not once.
It's fun.
I played it on a couple rounds yesterday, and then I played with it a bunch in the training mode just to like kind of see the ranges and stuff on it. And it's I get where
it's not bad. I don't think it's OP. I'm over the OP.
It has the same kind of limitations that any starter econ gun is going to have, but it's on the stronger side of those guns, if not the strongest side of those guns. So
okay, we'll see.
Yep. We're going to see. All right, chat. Well, thanks for hanging out. Hope you had a ton of fun on this one. Again, we do record live on Fridays, twitch.tv/KickedTripod at noon. You can find us on Twitter at SpikeDrop or on YouTube at bit.ly/SpikeDropYT. Big thanks to Blue for our intro and outro music, by the way. It sounds amazing. And if you want to support the show, great way to do that, sub right here at twitch.tv/KickedTripod or leave us a 5-star reviews like these two people did. Huh, Yiska?
Yes. And wow, I opened the YouTube to see that. If we can we get the YouTube URL? Can we queue that now with our subscribers, by the way?
We have to post a few more videos.
Okay.
We're close.
Sweet. So 5-star iTunes reviews is Logic. Oh, okay. I see what you did there with that language and with that stupid English. And then Slipper Snake 321. Thank you for leaving the iTunes reviews. Helps a lot, especially at the start of
I think
of
it might
a
be
new
Slippery
podcast.
Snake. I might have mistyped it.
Oh, slippery? Okay.
Yeah.
Slippery Snake. Okay, we're not going to think too
1.
much of that, especially during
Oh,
quarantine.
we're not. Yes, we are. We're just going to completely avoid that.
Jesus. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, thank you again for leaving a 5-star iTunes review. If you like the show, it really helps, especially early on with the show. Go to iTunes, leave a 5-star iTunes review. We'll thank you on the show. Always make sure to make a guess between Joe and Yiska to see which one of them doesn't have the spreadsheet as accessible, and I'll pick that person to read. So it's always fun.
Mine's always up.
Thank you.
I'm prepared. I was prepared with the show intro last time. I'm prepared anytime. Always prepared.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I have the tab up, but I was literally looking because of the question.
Because you're an old man and you're...
Why am I defending myself? I'm never going to open this one again.
All right. Shout outs for the week, and where can people find you? I guess the weekend before we see most of these people back on Monday.
True. And people will be able to find me right after this. So stick around, viewers. For the game nights, if you're just someone that's only interested in Spike Drop, I think we don't mind just having someone in the audience. You can watch us live. Still about us. And yes, there are intros about Overwatch, but increasingly we'll also definitely get our shit posting on for Spike Drop or for Valorant. Otherwise, I'll be around all weekend watching Owl, and then also continuously creating content. Like, for instance, I'm consistently updating my Valorant agent tier list. Now stats supported, so I take that into consideration, but also do just like based on what you see in tournaments, and take that into the consideration as well to see broad trends, because of course pro play sort of dictates what you also will see on ladder, especially as people start sweating and ranked. And yeah, that's
cool.
That's what you can expect from me.
Sweet. Joe, what about you? Try to be faster.
You can find me on all the socials at Volamel. That's VOL. Piece of content coming soon.
VOLAMEL. Sorry, your mic cut out.
Fair enough. We're coming in with some Ashe analysis played within a certain span of time in the Overwatch League, and then we're going to be hopefully this weekend. I'll be looking at Nip's run through one of these kind of cup tournaments, and why specifically one very important kind of meta staple was absent from a lot of their compositions. So we're going to be looking at that, and that should be posted this weekend, hopefully, if not early next week. So stay tuned.
Awesome. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. You can always find me, especially on Twitter. Big thank you to everybody who reached out about the video editor position. I think we've come to a decision, so we'll be announcing that or reaching out to that person shortly and doing that. But thank you for everyone who was really interested and just really wanted to help. It was really humbling of how many people were just like, hey, I just really want to help the show because I really like the show. So that was really awesome of you all. Nice. Thank you again for doing that. They said, despite guys still like the show, still tune in.
They love to hate me.
It's true. You're the best anti-hero, I think, in Overwatch right now. Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Stream's not gonna go down, but we're not gonna do a post show. We're gonna be back with some game night stuff in just a few minutes. Until then, we'll see you all next time. I pressed the wrong button again. Shoot. Is this the button I use? No. It's this button. This is the button. I gotta remember the button. We'll see you next time, chat. Thanks again.